Hello and welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name is Debbie Watts, Arrowcooler Card Art. Today's card is using the Sweet Poppy Stencils Magnolia. I'll be showing you the heated stencil dimensions technique too. A quick run through of the materials you'll need. So the all-important essentials kit from Sweet Poppy, you get a spreader and you get the stencil tape. This is a really good quality low tack stencil tape, it's not a masking tape. You get the magnetic sheet. This is really crucial piece of equipment for steel stencils. Without the magnetic sheet you will find that your steel stencil will move. It's made of steel, it's got sharp edges, so please mind those fingers. You can see, just placing it on the magnetic sheet, how firm the hold is. I just love this stencil, it's full of so much detail. I'm hoping you can pick this up on the camera, but we'll show the detail later. I'll be using Sweet Poppy Stencils Stencil Dimension Pearlescent White Paste today. This gives a luxurious finish. I've got a choice of mica powders, green and 2 pinks. A small applicator spoon. The all-important soft brush. The softer the brush, the better. This will be used for dusting that mica powder. 300 GSM card to work on, and this you sandwich between the magnetic sheet and your steel stencil. You'll also need a craft heat gun and a spatula to apply the paste. Using the stencil tape, apply 2 strips to both the top and the bottom of your stencil. Place a single strip down both side edges of the stencil. Your cardstock should now be completely masked off. Use the spatula and take 3 lots of good heaps of stencil paste and place on the top of your stencil onto the tape, not on the stencil. That's important. Spread evenly and just make sure that you're going to cover the full width of the stencil. Use the spreader, hold lightly in both hands so as not to cause a bow, and gently pull down and remove the surplus paste. Scrape this and put it back in your pot. You may need to do a second swipe just to remove any surplus. It's important to put the lid back on, of course, to keep your stencil paste from drying out. Slowly remove the tape from the bottom and the sides, leaving the top in place. Gently raise the magnetic sheet with your work on and lift off the stencil. Remove this and place into water. You can see the wonderful image this stencil leaves. I've speeded this bit up. Take your time and gently apply some sprinkles of the mica powder. I'm using the green on the flourish areas. You don't really need to cover entirely because what we're going to do is apply it and then tap around and shake off the surplus. At this stage, don't put the pink, just focus on the green. So gentle taps, moving that green mica powder around on the paste, and then shake off and tap the surplus and put that back into your pot. Repeat this process using the pinks on the petals of the flower image on your stencil. You've really got to do this while the image is still slightly wet to make sure that the mica powders adhere to the paste. Again, tap off the surplus before adding the next colour. Don't worry about any powder on the card. We're going to remove this when your work is completely dry. Using your craft heat gun, the next stage now is to create the texture, and we're going to heat the stencil dimension paste. So this probably will take you 4 or 5 minutes or so. I've speeded this up for the purpose of the video. So minding those fingers, and as you can see, you apply the heat and the paste will actually start to bubble. Just remove your gun from your work and then apply it back. And then what happens is this raises and reduces the stencil paste, and it creates a beautiful, beautiful texture. Leave your work to cool down, and it really does need to be cool. Once it is, it will go hard. So I would say put to one side for maybe about 15 minutes. Then take your soft brush and gently start to work off that surplus mica powder. You will see some residue on the card, but don't worry. Take a few minutes, maybe 3 or 4, and remove all of that surplus mica powder. With this pearlescent paste from Sweet Poppy, you actually see the shine, and the mica powder pigments really fix to this and just makes it look so luxurious. Clean your surface of the mica powder and just make sure it's off of your hands as well. With either an oval or a circular die, we want to create an aperture, and I'm going to emboss this through my machine with a script embossing folder. So decide whether you want an oval, make sure all the image can fit within the aperture, or the circle. For this one, I think I'm going to use the circle. Cut a piece of colour coordinated card, 300 GSM, 16.5 centimetres by 16.5 centimetres, and just make sure your chosen die fits onto that. Cut the aperture, and don't forget to keep that nothing ever goes to waste. Place your cut cardstock inside your embossing folder. This is an 8 by 8 inch. Because it's got a script, just make sure that it's actually going to be straight and run it through your machine. This adds a lovely script texture to what is ultimately a textured card. My card base today is a 17 by 17 centimetre white scored 300 GSM card. Make sure you can have an even border on 4 sides. Taking your stenciled artwork, lay it underneath the cut aperture. Make sure the sides are covered by the V shape and trim those edges top and bottom. Flip over your coloured cardstock and evenly place about 8 foam pads around the edge of the circle. This is going to then hold your artwork in place behind the aperture. Remove the foam pad backing and then centre your work underneath the aperture and affix it to place. Flip this back over and place larger foam pads onto the corners and one in the centre, and then fix this onto your folded card base. As personal choice and just another option, you could add a sentiment, and you would do this before you actually do the foam pad construction. The finished card. You can see I've added some ribbon in the top corner fixed with a gem and some gems in the bottom. So thank you for watching my tutorial. I hope you've enjoyed this, and from me, happy crafting.